I would describe Allen Benedict Court as the belly of hell.
We have 2 people that have died.
I think that we have done everything that we possibly could, and certainly if it could have been avoided, I would be the first to tell you that we would have taken steps to do it.
Reports of gas odors were only a fraction of potentially life-threatening problems found on the property. Residents reported the living room wall was falling apart. Rats were sneaking in through a hole. Attendants said the heater is spitting out fire.
I just don't think it's fair for people to live in that condition.
We view it as some type of imminent danger to life.
It was like a ticking bomb. Tick, 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 tick.
Mr. Roper and Mr. Witherspoon both died from carbon monoxide poisoning.
As long as we keep allowing them to sweep stuff underneath the rug, the residents are still going to feel as though they're not getting what is due to them.
They're blocking us in. Security's coming over here to talk to us. Why do I need to step out?
Because you're being charged for trespassing.
Jenna and Susan are both in handcuffs.
2 reporters from WLTX were detained, arrested. We certainly apologize for that. The board moves to order an independent and comprehensive investigation.
2 men have lost their lives, and until we get the answers, we are not going to stop reporting on this story.
This letter from the Columbia Fire Chief to the Columbia Housing Authority comes after an inspection was done at Allen Benedict Court. And in it, there are nearly 24 violations that were identified, some labeled severe and lethal. Now, News 19 requested the letter through the Freedom of Information Act. And this comes a week after 2 men were found dead in separate apartments at Allen Benedict Court after reports of gas leaks. Now, there were fire code violations and property maintenance violations. The fire code violations including the presence of natural gas, carbon monoxide was detected, smoke alarms were missing, as well as fire extinguishers being out of date. Property maintenance issues include roach infestations and possible bed bugs. Some stoves were leaking gas. There were also damaged ceilings and rodent droppings. Now, the Columbia Fire Chief, Aubrey Jenkins, he expressed in the letter that due to the severity of the noted deficiencies, it's been determined that all buildings at this location are unsafe. The conditions as outlined at Allen Benedict Court constitute a clear and imminent threat to human life, safety, or health. Now, we have the full letter on our website at WLTX.com as well as our WLTX app, but we're going to continue to follow the story as it unfolds. Reporting in the studio, Lauren Thomas, News 19, WLTX.
We're out here at Allen Benedict Court, and currently Susan and Jenna have been detained because they are trespassing on private property, but we have been given access to the building all week to go through documents, maintenance requests, and as you can see right now, Jenna and Susan are both in handcuffs. He just told me that I'm not allowed to record. If I step over this line right here, that I will also be detained.
Good afternoon, and we begin with breaking news this midday. I'm Brandon Taylor. Darcy Strickland is out at the Columbia Housing Authority, where WLTX reporters Jenna Kurzina and Susan Artis were arrested this morning by the Columbia Housing Authority police while trying to access the building that houses the public documents released by the Columbia Housing Authority earlier this week for Allen Benedict Court. Now, Darcy, you've been out there for some time. How did this unfold this morning? Exactly what happened?
You know, Brandon, every day we do the news. Unfortunately, today we became the story. As you just mentioned, Jenna Kurzina, Susan Artis were here at the Allen Benedict Court office. You can see it right over my shoulder. We have been here countless times. The executive director, Gilbert Walker, even invited us to be here to look at the documents associated with the 2 men who died, according to the coroner, of carbon monoxide poisoning in Building J. It's a story we've been following since last week. So today, when we showed up at the very same building that we have been to a number of times, the Columbia Housing Authority arrested these 2 reporters. Jenna, Susan, it's been a rough day for you guys this morning.
That's right, Darcy. And Susan and I were arrested when we were trying to access the building that houses the public records from the Columbia Housing Authority for Allen Benedict Court.
So what did they tell you?
They just told us that we should leave the premises.
And why?
We weren't really told exactly why, just repeatedly leave the premises.
And so once you stated the fact that this was a public building that we had been invited into, how did you go from there to being in handcuffs?
We were just told to leave, so we got into the car and we tried to exit, and that is when we were blocked in to what you see right here, this parking lot by the Columbia Housing Authority, told to exit our vehicle, and that's when we were put in handcuffs.
So did they do anything else? Did they take your information? Did they take your ID? What happened after that?
They did take our license and make photos of our license, driver's license.
You know, you've been in news, both of you, for quite some time. Did you ever feel like something like this could happen to you?
I mean, I guess, hear stories about it or in school and whatnot, but never actually pictured being arrested when just trying to get answers for the public here.
Same. I just have to echo what Jenna said. Hadn't thought of it. But, you know, just following the story, eventually it will happen, I suppose.
Here's the thing. We've been here countless times. We've gotten these documents. We've looked through these documents, and we found out information which doesn't necessarily put the Columbia Housing Authority in the best light. Do you think that had anything to do with your arrest today?
I mean, like you said, we've been out here. We've been able to access those documents. We've been trying to put a database for ourselves to get the correct information and see what's been happening. But, you know, it's hard to say.
At the end of the day, we're not going to let this stop us from getting answers, because, like it or not, there are two people who have died, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. What we can say is once the attorney for the Columbia Housing Authority found out that these two reporters had been arrested, he made calls and they were immediately released. So at the end of the day, this is just part of the story, but it's not the most important part of the story, because we know two men have lost their lives. And until we get the answers, we are not going to stop reporting on this story. We gained limited access to thousands of documents detailing countless maintenance issues at that complex. We've been organizing and creating a database of issues ever since then. And we've been organizing that database just to narrow down what some of the biggest problems have been. Residents complaining about no heat, no water, stoves not working, exposed wiring in the ceiling where smoke detectors were missing.
Building A. Residents reported the living room wall was falling apart, rats were sneaking in through a hole, and mold and mildew was present. Building B. Parts of the ceiling in the bedroom were gone. A resident said, "I wrote this up last year or the year before, and nothing has been done about it." In Building C, a tenant said the heater is spitting out fire. Building E. In neighboring apartments, the heater caught on fire, followed by 2 reports of the heater not working. The heater sparked flames in Building Q and Y, and a kitchen light sparked a fire in Building L. Building G. After a stove needed repair, a tenant had to call the fire department because she smelled gas. The report says the fireman told her the gas was coming from her oven. In the same building, odor was leaking into an apartment from a busted pipe underneath. Finally, in Building K, residents reported a ceiling problem had not been fixed for 3 years.
Since our investigation began, there have been some significant changes. First, there's been a shakeup in the Housing Authority leadership, with Executive Director Gilbert Walker announcing his retirement and 4 other members leaving. And lawmakers, they're taking action too. One state senator is pushing a bill to give Columbia's mayor more oversight on the Housing Authority. There's also a group of state lawmakers working on a bill to require carbon monoxide detectors at all homes statewide. And U.S. Senator Tim Scott has gotten a promise from federal employees at Housing and Urban Development to do carbon monoxide checks at all public housing. But we're far from done, and we won't stop in our efforts to get accountability and answers into this tragedy.